Hello.
And welcome to LOLOUT.
Now, some of you may be wondering why our name is actually LOLOUT. So, Rich, why don't you say?
Well, we love everything random, funny, and Fallout. Well, LOLOUT sort of combines all three of them.
Yeah, look at our first video. It was LOLOUT New Vegas, and then for our 100 subscriber special, we did LOLOUT New Vegas number 2. And we're kind of going to do them at milestones because that's what our channel's about, really. But we haven't done a Fallout video in quite a while, and that's for many different reasons. Probably the fact that we don't actually have too much contact, and Fallout's not a multiplayer game. But we thought maybe we'd have a refresher with this one, didn't we?
Yeah, so today we're going to be reviewing Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, mostly the differences between them and where we think that Fallout New Vegas has gone wrong.
Yeah, we think it was somewhat of a letdown. It was a good game, but there were definite issues with it compared to Fallout 3, weren't there?
Definitely.
So, without further ado, let's get on to that.
So, the storyline to start with, it felt lacking. It was too contrived and unrealistic. Okay, so you start off being shot in the head. Then you miraculously survive. Okay, happens, I can go with that. So, then you seek revenge. That's only natural, but a foolish prospect. After all, the guy did almost kill you. So, what's your incentive for the rest of the game? I don't see any. So, let's look at the 4 factions with this. You can join House. Why? I mean, his errand was what got you shot in the first place, and I imagine that working for him further will just get you shot more. I mean, that seems to be the general pattern of things. Take Yes Man's route? Well, that's taking the advice of the guy who tried to kill you, and going against one of the very few people in the game who actually wants you on side. Okay, so not House. Caesar's Legion. You have to be crazy to side with these guys voluntarily. They refuse drugs in any form other than medication, yet this level of morals is suspended when it comes to slavery, because they're the most brutal slavers that you encounter in the game. Possibly the only ones, actually. I can't even remember. I mean, they're pretty much on par with the slavers in Paradise Falls and from Fallout 3. But the Caesar's Legion have a belief and cause to do what they do, so you can't really get too mad at them. And this point is just further enhanced by the fact that you don't really interact with their slaves, but you do interact with the slaves at Paradise Falls, and hell, some of the slaves there were children. And come on, man, that's just evil. So, that leaves one faction, the NCR. So, it's only logical to join them, right? Wrong. It's not realistic at all. If your character wanted to be in the NCR, then what the hell was he doing as a courier at the start of the game? I mean, he'd have applied there as soon as he could. He wouldn't have stuck around being a courier.
Right, so let's talk about empathy. We'll be comparing this game to its predecessor a lot, because it's natural. Fallout 3 was both of our favourite game for a long time. And we think that most of what Fallout New Vegas did wrong, Fallout 3 did right. And, you know, you can easily compare them. And especially when you look at empathy and how the player feels towards characters in a game, it's ridiculously different from each one. One of the most compelling aspects of Fallout 3 was the empathy of the player gained towards each character. And I believe this is in part this is due to the lack of a childhood in New Vegas. In every Fallout game before New Vegas, you started in a vault, and usually as a child. And what this did is it gave you a home, which you're usually kicked out of, so it brings up, you know, lost memories and all this kind of stuff. But it also gives you an element of childhood, which you can it allows you to empathise with characters more because you've grown up with them. And especially your dad in Fallout 3, I mean, he's the reason you leave the vault, he's the reason you fight the fight you do. Everything in the game drives you towards your dad, and once he's dead, it drives you towards fulfilling his purpose. Yeah, this created a massive shock when your dad dies. You're awfully sad because he's been with you since the start of the game. He was the closest thing to your mother that you can remember, and yeah, it was just really sad when he died. Yeah, can you think of one moment in Fallout New Vegas that you generally felt empathy towards a character? I mean, think about what Richard was saying with Caesar's Legion, right? You're seeing people getting tortured and, you know, awful treatment of slaves, and yet, do you ever really feel bad for them? No, because you're not really meant to feel bad for them. The game designers didn't want you to feel bad for them because then it would rule out that faction. No one would go for it. Whereas look at Fallout 3 and look at Paradise Falls, you hate those guys because of the way they're treating people. And that's the difference. You don't feel empathy in New Vegas. And that means you have any emotion attached to the game, and if you've got no emotion attached to the game, you're not going to get as best a result, are you?
No, it's just not good enough.
It's just not good enough. Hashtag.
So, the factions in New Vegas. Well, we've gone over them a little bit, but now we're going to go over them in a bit more detail. Okay, so first we'll cover Caesar's Legion. So somebody decides to take up Caesar's name, or as he prefers, Kaiser. He tries to revive the dead language of Latin, which, by the way, is a great thing to do. Top lad. And he somehow convinces a bunch of people to follow him and believe in him. And they even believe in him and follow his ideals if you let him die. I mean, that's a serious level of commitment. And very unlikely. I mean, they've got to be loonies to follow him. And they were the faction that I liked most. What about you, Jake? Did you like them most?
Definitely, they're most interesting.
And unfortunately in New Vegas, that's not really saying a lot. It's not saying a lot at all. Okay, so let's move on to their polar opposite, the NCR. Well, they were a good idea. It seems like they were meant to be there. I mean, if the nuclear war happened, after some time, some new organisation would come along and try to, you know, take power and make the situation peaceful. So they're a good idea, but they just weren't quite done well enough. They seemed like they were meant to be done by the people for the people, but in the end they seemed to be by the people, but really they were only for themselves. They wanted to forcibly take power rather than gather the support of the people like they should have. So yeah, they're a bad faction. House. Well, that came out of the blue. So some great computer man named House, Dr. House maybe? Just putting it out there. Well, he appears out of nowhere and is the one who saved and now runs New Vegas. So, few points. One, he really shouldn't have any opposition in or even near the city. Everybody should love and thank him, but they don't. Two, he should have a much better handle on how things happen in his own town. But really, there's casinos which are doing weapon trades and trying to take him down. I mean, Benny is being a dick to him, trying to steal the platinum chip from him, and plotting with the Yes Man, who I'll come on to later. He just doesn't have a good handle on the situation, even with all of his security box. Speaking of which, he can't send out his specially designed killer robots to do what one untrained courier can? I mean, that's just going beyond ridiculous, really. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Suspension of disbelief broken.
Completely broken. Makes no sense.
And finally, the yes man. Oh, I hate him so much. So, following his path is doing exactly what House wants. Except you kill House along the way. That... just what? What the actual fuck? I mean... it's retarded.
Lazy programming as well. Lazy writing.
Yes.
You do the same missions, don't you, really?
Yeah, it's essentially copy and paste of the House scenario. And also, if you're about to kill Benny, would he really tell you that the yes man would be at your disposal? I mean, it seems to me that if I were in that situation, I'd try to screw the guy who was about to kill me over as much as I could. I mean, I wouldn't help him. I'd want him to go to hell. Don't know about you guys, but I'm a mean, vindictive bastard like that.
Dude's got a gun to your head. I mean, you're not going to say, oh yeah, by the way, all my money's under my bed and, you know, you can have my wife as well if you want.
It's just ridiculous.
Right, let's talk about over-ambition. I think this is one of the main, anyway, failings of this game. I think it's something to do with the shift of creators, you know, from Bethesda to, who is it? Is it
Obsidian?
Obsidian Games?
Yeah.
That was right. Yeah. Okay, right. The whole concept of factions I just disliked from the word go. As soon as I got in, I was like, right, okay, so they're gonna make me have this choice, and that's gonna affect the ending. That's a really cool idea. However, it didn't work in the Fallout universe, I don't think. Fallout is a game about being a survivor. You're alone and stranded. That's what really sold Fallout 3 for me. And then suddenly you're expected to side with a faction and do missions for them and help them out. And although realistic, I don't think it kept with like the ethos of the game.
Definitely not.
No.
And as discussed, it wasn't even realistic in all the cases.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't something you'd do. And that just kind of, it's like every mission I was like, why am I doing this again? Why aren't I on my own, you know? And it's like, ugh.
Which, in a sad sort of way, makes the Yes Man the most realistic of the factions.
Yeah. Also, I'm not saying I don't like Fallout's AI. It's, like, indicative of the game. But if you're gonna do a massive fight scene, like at the end of the game, spoilers, why would you do it? You've got AI that are, I'm not gonna lie, they're pretty dumb, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
They don't fight how people would intelligently. So when you stick 100 versus 100, they're just guns going off everywhere and people running in no particular order, and it just makes no sense. I mean, if you go onto Fallout on a PC and you spawn in 100 super mutants and then go somewhere else and spawn in 100, I don't know, NCR guys, they're just gonna fight each other and it'll be the exact same situation. It does not sit well with me. Breaks the immersion. Yeah, VATS, blah blah blah. Yeah, also power gains. Fallout 3 did this really well, right? In Fallout 3, you were very rarely given power over people, and when you were, it felt awesome. Like, for example, when you're walking with the robot down the streets and it's blowing up super mutants, and you're kind of like in its tracks. Really good feeling, like blown away to your dad. And then also the blown up Megatron. That was the most epic scene of a game ever. Pressing that button and then dum dum dum. It was just And then think about New Vegas. Can you think of one moment that made you feel that good? Maybe the end a little bit.
Yeah, maybe seeing the bombers go overhead and thinking, yeah, I recruited those guys.
But even so, you're not directly doing anything, are you?
No.
They're just scripted.
Yeah.
Whereas when you blow up Megatron, you literally you press that button and you look over and you see your actions, just unfold in front of you, and it is awesome. And I think they just put too much emphasis on the factions and not enough on making Fallout what Fallout's about. And that was the most sad thing for me. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Got anything to add about Overambition?
No, not really.
Not really.
Still, it must be admitted that they do have one thing in Fallout New Vegas which is better than in Fallout 3. The iron sights. I mean, they did them far better. The only ones that Fallout 3 really got right were the sniper rifle ones, but then again, it's relatively hard to fuck those up, isn't it?
But then again, when you think about playing New Vegas, how many times do you use them?
Aside from the sniper, to take out some deathclaws? Not that many, really.
No.
You either use VATS or the little gay crosshair thing in the middle of the screen.
Yeah. Iron Sights was Obsidian's plus.
Yeah, and it wasn't even that big of a plus.
No. Well, thank you very much for watching, guys. Leave your opinions on Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3 in the comments below, and stay tuned because we're going to be doing a video on what we'd expect and like from Fallout 4, which has been announced recently. So, yeah, stay tuned for that.
See you guys next time.